Cold billionaire who never touched women. Trembled when his hands found her in the dark. Evie's hands trembled as Ian Black cornered her in the dim hallway, his jaw tight with something that looked like fury but felt like fire. "You think I avoid women because I'm cold?" His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper as his fingers grazed her wrist, sending electricity through her entire body. "I avoid them because I've never felt anything close to what you make me feel. And that terrifies me." 6 hours earlier, the grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers and the carefully curated elegance that only serious money could buy. Evie Jordan adjusted the floral centerpiece on table 12, her trained eye catching the slight asymmetry that would bother her all evening if she didn't fix it now. 3 months into her divorce, and this was her life, making other people's events perfect while her own remained a beautiful disaster. She was a black woman in her late 30s, with rich brown skin that glowed under the chandelier light, natural curves that her ex-husband Kevin had spent years making her feel self-conscious about, and an understated elegance in her wine-colored dress. Her hair was styled in soft curls that framed her face, and her dark eyes held both warmth and wariness, the look of someone who'd learned to protect her heart. "Miss Jordan?" A crisp British accent cut through her thoughts. She turned to find Christopher Vale, the event's co-chair, approaching with purpose. "Mr. Black has arrived. He's asking about the silent auction setup." Evie's stomach tightened. Ian Black, billionaire tech mogul, largest donor to the Children's Healthcare Foundation, a man so famously private that even his charitable contributions came with strict conditions about publicity. And apparently, a man who avoided personal connections like they carried a contagious disease. "I'll speak with him," Evie said, smoothing her dress and adopting her professional smile. She found him standing alone near the auction display, a tall white man in his early 40s with dark hair touched with silver at the temples, sharp features that looked carved from stone, and ice-blue eyes that seemed to calculate the value of everything they observed. He wore his tuxedo-like armor, radiating the kind of quiet power that came from knowing you were the most important person in any room. Ian Black wasn't classically handsome in the approachable way. He was striking in the way that made you keep your distance, all hard edges and controlled intensity. "Mr. Black," Evie approached with confidence she'd learned to project. "I'm Evie Jordan, the event coordinator. I understand you have concerns about the auction?" His gaze shifted to her, and for a moment, something flickered in those cold eyes. His assessment was quick but thorough. "The placement is wrong," he said, his voice deep and controlled. "You have the pediatric wing renovation package between the medical equipment donation and the research grant. That's poor psychological flow. People will be donation fatigued by the time they reach the item I care most about." Evie blinked. Most donors complained about recognition or table placement. This man was critiquing her auction psychology. "The pediatric wing is your donation," she said, not a question. "You're concerned about fundraising effectiveness, not personal recognition." Something shifted in his expression, surprise perhaps, though he controlled it quickly. "Most people assume wealthy donors care only about seeing their names in gold." "Most people don't pay attention," Evie replied, already mentally rearranging the display. "You're right about the placement. The pediatric wing should open the section, not close it. It's the emotional anchor. Sick children pull at heartstrings. Everything else builds from there." Ian's eyes narrowed slightly, studying her with new interest. "You understand donor psychology." "I understand people, Mr. Black. Donors are just people with bigger checkbooks." She met his gaze directly, refusing to be intimidated. "Give me 20 minutes. I'll have it rearranged." 10, he said, but there was the ghost of something, not quite a smile but close, at the corner of his mouth. "The cocktail hour starts in 10 minutes. "Then I'd better hurry." Evie turned away, but his voice stopped her. "Miss Jordan." She looked back. He was watching her with an intensity that made her skin warm. "Thank you. Most coordinators would have gotten defensive." "Most coordinators haven't learned that ego is expensive and usually wrong," she said. "Besides, you're paying for perfection. I intend to deliver it." This time, he definitely almost smiled. Evie worked quickly, aware, hyper-aware, of Ian Black watching her from across the room. He'd positioned himself with a glass of scotch, pretending to review his phone, but she could feel his attention like heat on her skin. She'd felt invisible for years in her marriage. Kevin had stopped really seeing her somewhere around year 3, treating her like attractive furniture that managed his social calendar. But Ian Black was definitely seeing her. The realization sent a flutter through her chest that she firmly suppressed. She was here to work, not to feel flattered by the attention of a notoriously cold billionaire. "You're moving the medical equipment forward." Christopher Vale appeared at her elbow. "Ian specifically requested that placement." "Ian was wrong," Evie said absently. Then she caught herself. "Mr. Black, I mean. The flow wasn't optimal." Christopher's eyebrows rose. "You told Ian Black he was wrong?" "I told him he was right, actually. But yes, I would have told him if he was wrong. That's my job, making this event succeed, not protecting egos." She stepped back, surveying her work with satisfaction. "There, much better." "He's watching you, you know," Christopher said quietly. "Ian doesn't watch people. People watch Ian hoping for his approval. But he's been watching you since you walked away." Before Evie could respond, the man himself approached. Ian moved with predatory grace, cutting through the growing crowd without seeming to rush. "Impressive," he said, examining her rearrangement. "You have a good eye." "I have a good understanding of human nature," Evie corrected. "We're all predictable once you understand what we value." "And what do I value, Miss Jordan?" The question felt loaded, his blue eyes fixed on her with unsettling intensity. Evie met his gaze, refusing to look away even as her pulse quickened. "Control, effectiveness, making sure your resources create actual impact rather than just good publicity." She paused. "And proving that you're more than your bank account, that your mind is your real asset." The silence between them stretched, charged with something Evie couldn't quite name. She'd surprised him again. She could see it in the slight widening of his eyes, the barely perceptible way his shoulders loosened. "You're perceptive," he said finally, his voice lower, almost intimate despite the public setting. "I pay attention," Evie replied. "Most people don't, which makes it easier to see clearly when you actually look." "And what do you see when you look at me?" Evie should have deflected, should have made a polite joke and excused herself. Instead, she found herself answering honestly. "Someone who uses cold as a shield because warmth was weaponized against you." The words came out soft, almost against her will. "Someone brilliant and lonely who's convinced himself that isolation is safety." Ian's expression shuddered immediately, walls slamming back into place, but not before she saw something flash in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or fear that she'd seen too much. "You know nothing about me," he said, his voice returning to its clipped, controlled tone. "You're right," Evie agreed quietly. "I apologize. That was inappropriate and presumptuous." She turned to walk away, but his hand shot out, fingers wrapping around her wrist. The contact was electric, his skin warm against hers, his grip firm but not painful. Both of them froze, staring at where they were connected. "Don't," Ian said, then seemed to struggle with what came next. His thumb moved almost unconsciously against her pulse point, and Evie's breath caught. "Don't apologize for being the first person in years to actually see me." Their eyes locked, and the crowded ballroom seemed to fade away. Evie was intensely aware of everything. The strength in his fingers, the way his jaw tightened as if he was fighting something internal, the rapid beat of her own heart that he must be feeling beneath his thumb. This was dangerous. This was a client. This was a man who avoided emotional entanglements like plague, and yet she couldn't make herself pull away. "Evie," her friend Lauren Coleman's voice shattered the moment. Ian released her wrist immediately, stepping back, with smooth composure. "We need you in the kitchen. Crisis with the main course." Evie blinked, reality crashing back. "Of course. Excuse me, Mr. Black." She hurried away, but she could feel his gaze following her across the room. Lauren grabbed her arm the moment they were out of sight. "Girl, what was that?" "What was what?" Evie tried for innocent. "Ian Black touching you. Ian Black looking at you like you're the only person in the room." Lauren's dark eyes were wide. "Do you know how many women have thrown themselves at that man? He's famous for his Ice King routine, and he was practically devouring you with his eyes. Don't make it into something. He was just thanking me for fixing the auction display." "Honey, that was not a thank you look. That was an I want to know what you taste like. Look. Evie's skin flushed hot. Lauren, I'm 3 months divorced. My ex-husband is currently trying to win back his mistress. I'm not in a place to, which is exactly why you should absolutely explore whatever that was, Lauren interrupted. When was the last time a man looked at you like you mattered? Never, Evie thought. Kevin had never looked at her that way, not even in the beginning. It doesn't matter, she said firmly. He's a client, I'm working, and in 2 hours this event will be over and I'll never see Ian Black again. But even as she said it, Evie knew she was wrong. The fundraising dinner was a masterpiece of careful choreography. Evie moved through the ballroom like a conductor, ensuring every detail aligned perfectly. But Ian Black's presence was a constant awareness prickling at the back of her neck. Twice she'd caught him watching her instead of the speaker at the podium. The third time their eyes met across the room, he didn't look away. Neither did she. The moment stretched, loaded with possibility and danger, until Christopher leaned in to ask Ian something and broke the connection. Have you ever met someone who saw past all your carefully constructed walls in a single conversation? Someone whose attention felt like sunlight after years of shadows? Tell me your story in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if this story's already pulling you in. Because Evie and Ian's night is just getting started, and what happens next will change everything. As the evening wound down and guests began departing, Evie stepped outside for air and found herself alone in the hallway, checking on final details. Avoiding the crowd? Ian's voice came from behind her, and Evie's entire body responded, skin warming, pulse jumping, awareness flooding through her. She turned to find him leaning against the wall, his bow tie loosened slightly and his tuxedo jacket unbuttoned. The controlled billionaire facade had cracked just enough to reveal something more human underneath. Making sure everything runs smoothly, Evie replied. That's my job. Your job ended 10 minutes ago when the speech is concluded, Ian observed. The foundation is satisfied, the donations exceeded projections, and you've fulfilled every contractual obligation. He pushed off the wall, moving closer. So why are you still working instead of celebrating your success? Because celebrating alone is just another kind of loneliness, Evie thought, but didn't say. Force of habit, she answered instead. Ian stepped closer, and Evie's back pressed against the wall behind her. He wasn't crowding her, there was still space between them, but the air felt thick with tension. What if I don't want you to walk away? His voice was low, almost rough, as if the words cost him something. This was the moment from the opening, the hallway confrontation that had been building all evening. Evie's breath caught. Mr. Black. Ian, he interrupted. When I'm trying to figure out if I'm about to make a terrible mistake, you should at least call me Ian. Are you? Her voice came out breathier than intended. About to make a terrible mistake? His gaze dropped to her lips, and Evie felt the look like a physical touch. I've spent 5 years avoiding exactly this feeling. I've built an entire reputation on being immune to attraction, to connection, to anything that might compromise my judgment. His eyes met hers again, and there was something almost angry in their intensity, not at her, but at himself. And then you walked into my field of vision and took apart every defense I've constructed. I was just doing my job, Evie whispered. You were being yourself. Ian's hand came up, his fingers hovering near her face but not quite touching. Brilliant, perceptive, unimpressed by my money, brave enough to challenge me. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Ian. She didn't know what she was asking for him to step back, to step closer, to make this decision for both of them. His fingers finally made contact, brushing along her jaw with a tenderness that made her eyes flutter closed. Tell me to leave, Evie. Tell me you're not interested, that this is inappropriate, that I'm your client and you're professional. Give me any reason to walk away. Evie opened her eyes, meeting his intense gaze. She should say all of those things. Should protect herself, protect her heart that was still bruised from Kevin's betrayal. But when she opened her mouth, different words emerged. What if I can't? The confession hung between them, heavy with implication. Ian's control visibly cracked. She saw it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his breathing changed, the way his fingers pressed just slightly firmer against her skin. Then I'm going to kiss you, he said, giving her one last chance to refuse. and everything's going to change. Promise? The word came out teasing, brave, more confident than she felt. Ian's eyes darkened with something that looked like hunger and wonder combined. You're going to ruin me, he murmured, almost to himself. Then he closed the distance between them. His lips met, hers with controlled intensity, firm, warm, tasting faintly of the scotch he'd been drinking. The kiss started almost tentative, as if he was testing boundaries, learning what she liked. But when Evie made a soft sound in the back of her throat and leaned into him, something in Ian unleashed. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. His other hand found her waist, pulling her against him with a possessiveness that should have alarmed her, but instead sent heat flooding through her entire body. Evie's hands gripped his shoulders, feeling the hard muscle beneath the expensive fabric, the tension in his body that matched her own. This wasn't a polite first kiss. This was years of isolation meeting years of feeling invisible, creating something combustible and undeniable. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ian rested his forehead against hers. His thumb stroked along her jaw, a gesture that felt almost reverent. I don't do this, he said, his voice rough. I don't feel this, I know, Evie interrupted softly. Neither do I. Not anymore. Not after your divorce. It wasn't a question. His blue eyes searched hers, seeing too much again. Someone hurt you, made you doubt your worth. Someone taught me that wanting more than I was given was selfish, Evie corrected. That being seen was asking too much. Ian's expression turned fierce. Then they were a fool. He kissed her again, slower this time but no less intense. His hands mapped her curves with an appreciation that made her feel beautiful instead of self-conscious. When his lips trailed from her mouth to her jaw, then to the sensitive spot below her ear, Evie's knees actually weakened. Come home with me, Ian whispered against her skin. Let me see all of you. Let me show you what it feels like to be valued. The invitation was tempting. God, it was so tempting. Evie wanted to say yes, wanted to let herself fall into this unexpected connection, but reality intruded in the form of voices approaching from the ballroom. Ian pulled back immediately, his businessman's composure sliding back into place like a mask. But his hand found hers, fingers intertwining, thumb stroking her palm in a gesture that felt like a promise. I should go, Evie said reluctantly. The event is over, Ian finished, but you're right. This is neither the time nor the place. He pulled a business card from his pocket, pressing it into her free hand. My private number, not the office line, my personal cell. Evie stared at the embossed card, then back at his face. Why are you giving me this? Because I want to see you again. Away from work, away from obligations. Just us. His intensity returned, boring into her. Tell me you want that too. She should say no. Should recognize this as rebound insanity, a way to salve her wounded ego after Kevin's rejection. But this didn't feel like a rebound. It felt like waking up after years of sleepwalking through her own life. I want that too, Evie admitted. Ian's smile was small but genuine, the first real smile she'd seen from him all night. It transformed his face from striking to devastating, and Evie's heart stuttered in response. Tomorrow, he said, have dinner with me, somewhere private where I can actually talk to you without an audience. Tomorrow, Evie agreed. He kissed her once more, brief but searing, then stepped back before the approaching voices could discover them. His fingers slid from hers reluctantly, and Evie felt the loss of contact like a physical ache. Good night, Evie Jordan, Ian said softly. You've successfully disrupted my carefully ordered life. Good night, Ian Black, she replied. You've successfully made me feel again. He disappeared around the corner just as Lauren appeared, but Evie barely heard her friend's chatter, too busy touching her still tingling lips and wondering what the hell she'd just started. In her pocket, Ian's business card felt like both a promise and a threat. Everything was about to change, and for the first time in years, Evie wasn't afraid of change. She was exhilarated by it. The next evening arrived with nerve-wracking speed. Evie spent the entire day in a state of nervous anticipation, catching herself checking her phone every 10 minutes, rereading Ian's brief text from that morning. Tonight, 7 o'clock, I'll send a car. Wear something that makes you feel beautiful. Not for me, for you. The message was so perfectly Ian, Commanding yet considerate, direct yet revealing layers of thoughtfulness. Lauren noticed her distraction immediately when they met for afternoon coffee. "You're glowing," Lauren announced. "Spill everything, now." Evie tried for innocent. "I don't know what you— Ian Black kissed you." It wasn't a question. "I knew it. I saw the way that man was looking at you." Heat flooded Evie's cheeks. "He kissed me in the hallway, and I'm seeing him tonight, for dinner, at his place." Lauren's squeal attracted attention from every table in the cafe. "His place? Evie Jordan, are you about to sleep with a billionaire?" "I don't know. Maybe?" Evie buried her face in her hands. "Oh God, what am I doing? I'm 3 months divorced. Kevin's been texting me trying to reconcile, and instead of focusing on healing, I'm going to dinner with a man who literally told me I'm going to ruin him." "Good." Lauren's voice turned fierce. "Kevin doesn't deserve your focus. That man spent 10 years making you feel invisible and inadequate. Ian Black looked at you for 5 minutes and saw everything Kevin missed." She reached across the table, squeezing Evie's hand. "When was the last time you felt desired? Valued? Seen?" "Never," Evie admitted quietly. "Not like this. Then go to dinner. Let yourself feel whatever you're going to feel. Stop protecting yourself from good things just because bad things happened." At 4 o'clock, Evie's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Her heart jumped, hoping it was Ian. "Miss Jordan." His deep voice sent shivers down her spine. "I have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Concern replaced anticipation. "I can't wait until 7 o'clock to see you." Evie's breath caught. "Ian, I'm parked outside your office building," he continued. "I have a business meeting in your neighborhood at 5, and I thought, if you have time— Coffee? Just 30 minutes? Evie looked at her computer screen, covered in emails she'd been staring at without processing. "I have time. Ground floor, west entrance, 5 minutes." He disconnected before she could respond. Evie found Ian waiting exactly where he'd said, leaning against a sleek black car. He wore a charcoal suit that fit perfectly, but his tie was loosened, and his expression was less controlled than the previous night, almost nervous, though he'd probably deny it. "Hi," Evie said, suddenly shy. "Hi." Ian's gaze traveled over her, taking in her simple work dress with appreciation that made her feel like she was wearing couture. "I realize showing up at your workplace is probably inappropriate." "Probably," Evie agreed, fighting a smile. "I couldn't help it." He pushed off from the car, moving closer. "I kept thinking about last night, about kissing you, about tonight, and what might happen if we're finally alone without interruption." Evie's pulse raced. They were standing on a public sidewalk, and Ian Black was looking at her like she was the only person who existed. "Coffee," she managed. "You said coffee." "I lied." His lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile but was far more dangerous. "I just needed to see you, to make sure last night was real, and not some fantasy my isolation-starved mind created." "It was real," Evie assured him. "Prove it." The challenge hung between them. Evie stepped closer, rising on her toes, and pressed a soft kiss to his lips. It was brief, chaste by comparison to their hallway encounter, but the effect on Ian was visible. His hand came up to cup the back of her head, holding her in place as he deepened the kiss just slightly. When they parted, his eyes had darkened to stormy blue. "Tonight can't come fast enough," he murmured. "Ian Black, are you impatient?" Evie teased. "For you? Apparently, I'm willing to abandon my famous self-control entirely." He glanced at his watch, then back at her with visible reluctance. "I actually do have a meeting. But tonight—" "Tonight," Evie confirmed. He kissed her once more, quick and possessive, then forced himself to step back. 7 o'clock. The car will bring you to my penthouse. We'll have complete privacy." "Should I be nervous about that?" Ian's expression softened. "You're safe with me, Evie. Always. I might want you with an intensity that borders on irrational, but I would never push you beyond what you want." He paused. "Though I very much hope what you want aligns with what I want." "What do you want?" "Everything." The word was simple, honest, devastating. "I want to know everything about you, taste every inch of your skin, hear every sound you make, discover exactly what makes you come undone." His thumb brushed her lower lip. I want to erase every memory of feeling invisible and replace it with absolute certainty that you're the most captivating woman I've ever encountered." Evie couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the promise in his words settling into her bones. 7 o'clock, she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Ian smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed him. 7 o'clock. Back in her apartment, Evie stood before her closet in paralysis. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ian. "Stop overthinking. I don't care what you wear. I care about the woman wearing it." Despite herself, Evie laughed. How did he know? Another text. "Though I wouldn't object to something that provides easy access." Heat flooded through her, accompanied by boldness she barely recognized. She typed back, "Easy access implies you're assuming this ends in bed." His response came immediately. "I'm not assuming anything. I'm hoping everything." At 6:55, Evie's doorbell rang. But when she opened the door, it wasn't a driver standing there. It was Ian. He'd changed into dark slacks and a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up his forearms. Casual, but still devastating. And he was holding a single perfect rose, deep red, just opening. "You were supposed to send a car," Evie said, her prepared composure destroyed. "I decided I'd rather pick you up myself," Ian replied. His gaze traveled over her slowly. "You look stunning. You look like you're trying to make me forget how to form sentences." "Good," he offered the rose. "I want you off balance, feeling, not thinking your way out of what's happening between us." "What is happening between us?" Evie asked, suddenly needing clarity. Ian stepped closer, crowding into her doorway in a way that felt protective. "Something I've spent 5 years avoiding, something that terrifies me, something I can't resist despite knowing I should." "You could still walk away," Evie pointed out. "Could I?" His hand came up, cupping her face with tenderness that made her eyes sting. "Because I've been trying to convince myself of that all day, and I keep ending up here, at your door, ready to beg you to give us a chance. Ian Black doesn't beg. Ian Black didn't. Past tense." His thumb stroked her cheekbone. "But for you, I'm discovering I'll do a lot of things I never imagined." Evie set the rose on her entry table and closed the distance between them, pressing herself against his chest. Ian's arms came around her immediately, and for a moment they just stood there, breathing each other in. "I'm scared," Evie admitted. "So am I," Ian confessed. "Absolutely terrified." "Of what?" "Of how much I already need this, need you." He pulled back enough to look at her. "I built my entire life around not needing anyone. And then you walked into it and made me want everything I'd convinced myself I didn't need." Evie's heart cracked open at the raw honesty. "We should probably slow down." "Probably," Ian agreed. "Talk more. Take time to actually know each other." "Sensible. Maybe skip dinner and just—" Ian kissed her, effectively ending the debate. This kiss was different from their hallway encounter, deeper, more assured, carrying the promise of everything that was about to happen. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Dinner," Ian said firmly. "Because when I finally take you to bed, Evie Jordan, I want you absolutely certain it's what you want. No doubts, no questions, no room for regrets." "And if I'm already certain?" His eyes blazed with barely restrained hunger. "Then we'll have a very quick dinner." Chapter 2. The car ride to Ian's penthouse was thick with tension. He held her hand the entire way, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm that felt both soothing and incendiary. Neither of them spoke much. Words felt unnecessary when the air between them crackled with anticipation. Ian's building was in the heart of the city's most exclusive district, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. The private elevator required a key card, and as it began its ascent, Ian turned to her. "Last chance to change your mind," he said. "Once we're alone in my space, my self-control is going to be tested in ways it's never been tested before." Evie turned to face him fully, her back against the elevator wall. "What if I don't want you to have self-control?" Ian's restraint visibly cracked. He moved into her space, one hand bracing against the wall beside her head, the other cupping her jaw. "You're dangerous." "So are you," Evie whispered. "You make me want things I'd convinced myself weren't for me." "Like what?" "Passion. Being desired. feeling like I matter more than what I can provide. Her hand slid up his chest, feeling his rapid pulse beneath her palms, feeling like I'm enough exactly as I am. Evie. Her name came out rough, almost pained. You're more than enough. The elevator chimed their arrival, doors sliding open to reveal a stunning penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Ian took her hand, leading her inside. The space was exactly what she'd expected. Modern, expensive, immaculate, but it also felt oddly impersonal, like a showroom rather than a home. You don't really live here, Evie observed. You exist here. There's a difference. Ian paused, turning to look at her with that unnerving perception. How do you do that? See things no one else notices? I pay attention to what people reveal about themselves in small ways. She walked to the windows, taking in the glittering cityscape. This place is beautiful, but it's a fortress. No vulnerability, no mess, no evidence of actual life. I don't do vulnerable, Ian said, but there was something almost questioning in his tone. You did last night, in that hallway, when you told me I'd seen you. Evie turned to face him. You're doing it now by bringing me here, letting me into your carefully controlled space. Ian crossed the distance between them with purpose, his hands framing her face with gentleness that contrasted with the intensity in his eyes. You make me want to be vulnerable, want to let someone in, and that terrifies me more than any business deal or financial risk ever could. Why? Evie asked softly. Because business I can control. Numbers, markets, people's motivations in professional contexts. I understand all of that. His forehead pressed against hers. But this? What I feel when I look at you, the way you've gotten under my skin in less than 24 hours? I don't know how to control it, and control is all I've had for 5 years. What happened 5 years ago? Ian's jaw tightened, old pain flickering across his features. Amanda Daniels, we were engaged. I thought she loved me, the actual me, not just the money. He pulled back slightly, but kept his hands on Evie's face as if she were an anchor. Turned out she was feeding corporate intelligence to my competitors while sleeping with my business rival. I lost millions and almost lost my company because I trusted someone with my heart and my secrets. So you stopped trusting anyone with either, Evie finished, until you. The admission seemed to cost him. I don't know why you're different, but you are. Evie's heart ached for him, for the betrayal that had turned warmth to ice, for the years of isolation he'd endured. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm not looking for pity. That's not pity, Evie interrupted. That's empathy. There's a difference. Her hands slid up to rest against his chest. My ex-husband, Kevin, spent 10 years making me feel like I was never quite enough. Not pretty enough, not interesting enough, not worthy of his full attention. I bent myself into shapes, trying to be what he wanted. And it still wasn't enough. Her voice cracked slightly. Then I found out he'd been having an affair with his assistant for 2 years. Not because I wasn't enough, because he was too self-absorbed to see what he had. Ian's expression turned fierce. He's an idiot. He's my past, Evie corrected, just like Amanda is yours. But our pasts don't have to define our future. What if I don't know how to do this? Ian's vulnerability was raw, honest. What if I hurt you because I don't know how to be what you need? What if we figure it out together? Evie countered. No expectations, no pressure. Just seeing where this goes. Ian studied her for a long moment, something shifting behind his eyes, a decision being made, a wall coming down. I want you, he said simply. Not just physically, though God knows I want that too. I want to know what makes you laugh, what keeps you up at night, what dreams you've been too afraid to voice. Then ask me, Evie invited. Stop treating this like a negotiation and just be with me. Something in Ian softened, his controlled exterior melting into something more genuine. Tell me about your dreams. They moved to his couch, expensive leather that probably cost more than Evie's car, and somehow ended up with her tucked against his side, his arm around her shoulders, both of them looking out at the city lights. I want to start my own event planning company, Evie confessed. Not working for someone else, executing their vision, creating something that's entirely mine, events that feel personal and meaningful, not just expensive and impressive. Why haven't you? Fear, Evie admitted. My divorce settlement gave me enough to start, but what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough on my own? Kevin always said I was good at execution, but lacked vision. Kevin was wrong, Ian said firmly. I watched you last night. You didn't just execute someone else's vision, you improved it. You understood the psychology, the flow, the emotional impact. That's vision. Evie twisted to look at him. You really think so? I know so. His hand came up to tuck a curl behind her ear, and I'd invest in that company in a heartbeat. I don't want your money. I'm not offering charity, Ian interrupted. I'm offering a business opportunity. Your talent, my capital and connections. We could build something extraordinary. The offer was tempting, but Evie shook her head. Let's figure out us before we figure out business partnerships. Ian's smile was small but genuine. Fair enough. Your turn. Ask me something. Why technology? Evie asked. What drew you to that industry? Control, Ian answered honestly. Technology is logical, predictable in its unpredictability. Code does what you tell it to do. Systems follow rules. There's order in it, even when you're innovating. He paused. Unlike people who are messy and unpredictable and capable of devastating betrayal. Also capable of extraordinary love, Evie pointed out softly. I wouldn't know, Ian said, but there was something wistful in his tone. My parents had a business arrangement disguised as a marriage. My father taught me that emotions were weaknesses to exploit in others and eliminate in yourself. Success came from discipline, not attachment. That's a lonely way to live. It's a safe way to live, Ian corrected. Then he looked at her, really looked at her, and added, or it was. Until you. The air between them shifted, thickening with the same tension that had been building since they'd met. Ian's hand came up, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw with reverence that made Evie's breath catch. I want to kiss you, he said, giving her the choice. And I'm not sure I'll be able to stop with just kissing. Then don't stop, Evie whispered. Ian's kiss was slow this time, exploratory, as if he was memorizing the taste and texture of her lips. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head to deepen the connection, while his other hand found the small of her back, pulling her closer until she was practically in his lap. Evie's fingers worked at the buttons of his shirt, needing to feel his skin beneath her palms. When she finally pushed the fabric aside, Ian made a sound low in his throat that sent heat pooling through her entire body. Bedroom, he managed against her lips. I want to do this properly, want to take my time with you. He stood, lifting her with him as if she weighed nothing, and Evie wrapped her legs around his waist instinctively. Ian carried her through the penthouse to a master bedroom that was all clean lines and muted colors, impersonal like the rest of his space, except for the way he laid her on his bed with gentleness that suggested she was precious. Tell me what you want, Ian said, his voice rough as he braced himself above her. Tell me what makes you feel cherished. You, Evie answered simply, looking at me the way you're looking at me now, like I matter, like you see me. I see you, Ian promised. His hands found the zipper of her dress, pausing for her consent. At her nod, he slowly revealed her body inch by inch, his gaze never leaving hers. You're so beautiful. Do you know that? Do you feel it? I'm starting to, Evie admitted, her voice trembling. Ian's lips followed the path his hands had traced, her collarbone, the curve of her breast, the softness of her stomach. Each kiss felt like worship, like he was trying to erase every moment of Kevin's neglect with pure attention. Ian, she gasped as his mouth found sensitive skin. Please. Please what? He looked up at her, his eyes dark with desire, but also something tender. Tell me what you need. You, Evie said again, all of you. No more walls, no more control. Just us. Something in Ian's expression cracked open completely. He shed the rest of his clothing with efficient movements, then returned to her, skin against skin, the heat between them almost overwhelming. I don't know how to do this without control, Ian confessed, his forehead pressed to hers. But I want to try. For you, I want to try. Evie's hands framed his face, pulling him into a kiss that was equal parts tender and desperate. Then feel, she whispered against his lips. Stop thinking and just feel. The world narrowed to sensation. The slide of skin on skin, the mingling of breath, the way their bodies seemed to recognize each other despite this being their first time together. Ian moved with careful intensity, watching her face for every reaction, adjusting to what made her sigh, what made her fingers dig into his shoulders. "Look at me," he commanded softly when her eyes started to drift closed. "I want to see you. Want to watch you come apart." Evie forced her eyes open, meeting his intense gaze, and the intimacy of it nearly undid her. This wasn't just physical, this was connection, raw and honest and terrifying in its intensity. "Ian," she gasped as sensation built, spiraling higher. "I can't—" "Yes, you can," he encouraged, his voice strained with his own restraint. "Let go. I've got you." And she did, surrendering completely, trusting him to catch her as waves of pleasure crashed over her. Ian followed moments later, his control finally shattering as he buried his face in her neck and breathed her name like a prayer. In the aftermath, they lay tangled together, pulses gradually slowing, skin cooling in the air-conditioned room. Ian's fingers traced lazy patterns on her back, and Evie felt more at peace than she had in years. "That was—" Ian started, then seemed to struggle for words. "Terrifying?" Evie supplied. "Overwhelming? Life-changing?" "All of that," he agreed. "I've never felt anything close to that. To this." He pulled her closer as if afraid she might disappear. "What have you done to me, Evie Jordan?" "Hopefully the same thing you've done to me," Evie replied, pressing a kiss to his chest. "Made me feel alive again." They stayed like that for a long time, talking in the darkness about everything and nothing, childhood memories, favorite foods, embarrassing moments, dreams they'd been too afraid to voice. Ian told her about building his company from nothing, about the terror and exhilaration of risking everything. Evie shared her love of creating beautiful moments for others, the satisfaction of seeing a vision come to life. "I want to do this again," Ian said eventually, his voice quiet in the darkness. "Not just the physical part, though, that was extraordinary. But this, talking, being together, not having to perform or maintain walls." "Me too," Evie agreed. "Though we should probably discuss what this actually is. Are we dating? Seeing where things go?" Ian shifted to look at her, his expression serious. "I want to date you properly, take you to dinner, introduce you to my life, be part of yours. But I need you to understand. I don't know how to do relationships. I'm going to mess this up." "Then we'll mess it up together," Evie said. "I don't know how to trust again after Kevin. I'm going to have moments of doubt and insecurity." "Then we'll work through them," Ian countered. "Together." The word hung between them, heavy with promise and possibility. Evie woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, and the unfamiliar but pleasant sensation of a warm, male body pressed against her back. Ian's arm was draped over her waist, holding her close even in sleep, and for a moment she just lay there, savoring the feeling of being held. Then, reality intruded. It was morning, which meant she'd stayed the entire night, which meant this was real and not just a heat-of-the-moment decision. Panic started to creep in. What had she done? She barely knew this man. They'd met less than 48 hours ago, and she'd already slept with him, stayed over, started developing feelings that went far beyond simple attraction. "I can feel you overthinking," Ian's voice rumbled against her ear, thick with sleep. "Stop it." "How do you know I'm overthinking?" "Your breathing changed, and you tensed up like you're about to bolt." His arm tightened around her waist. "Don't run." "I should go," Evie said, but made no move to leave. "This is moving too fast. We should slow down. Take time to—" Ian turned her in his arms, cutting off her spiral with a kiss that was sleep-soft, but no less effective. "Good morning," he said when he finally pulled back. "Now, let's try this again without the panic." Despite herself, Evie smiled. "Good morning." "Better." Ian's thumb traced her lower lip. "Talk to me. What's going through your head?" "That this is crazy," Evie admitted. "That I don't do things like this. Sleep with men I barely know. Stay over. Feel this much this fast." "Neither do I," Ian pointed out. "Which should tell you something about how extraordinary this is. Or how reckless." "Maybe both." He tucked a curl behind her ear. "Evie, I meant what I said last night. I want to do this properly. But properly doesn't have to mean slowly if we're both certain about what we want." Are you certain? Terrifyingly so, Ian confessed. I've spent 5 years avoiding exactly this feeling, and now that I have it, I don't want to let it go. Don't want to let you go. Evie's heart did something complicated in her chest, part fear, part exhilaration, all intensity. I need coffee before I can process that confession. Ian's laugh was warm and genuine. I can do coffee. Pancakes too, if you're impressed by men who can cook. You cook? I have many hidden talents, Ian said with a suggestive smile that made Evie's stomach flip. Some of which you discovered last night. Others I'm saving to surprise you with. He climbed out of bed unselfconsciously, pulling on pajama pants and offering Evie one of his shirts. She slipped it on, the fabric hanging to mid-thigh, and caught Ian staring at her with an expression of such open desire that heat flooded through her again. We should eat, she said quickly, needing distance from the magnetic pull between them. We should, Ian agreed, but didn't move. In a minute. He crossed back to her, cupping her face and kissing her with thoroughness that suggested breakfast might be delayed significantly. They made it to the kitchen eventually, where Ian proved surprisingly competent at pancake preparation. Evie perched on a bar stool, watching him work with efficiency that spoke of practice. So you do actually live here sometimes, she teased. There's food in your refrigerator and you know where the spatula is. I live here, Ian confirmed. I just don't make it feel like home. There's a difference. He flipped a pancake with professional skill. My sister Taylor has been on me for years about it. Says my penthouse looks like a hotel suite. You have a sister? Evie latched onto this new information. Tell me about her. Ian's expression softened in a way Evie hadn't seen before. Taylor's 3 years younger, relentlessly optimistic, and the only person who's consistently broken through my walls. She's a pediatric surgeon, married with 2 kids, and firmly believes I need to stop hiding from life. Smart woman. She's going to love you, Ian said, then seemed to realize what he'd implied. I mean, if you meet her, which you probably will, because she's incredibly nosy and will demand to know who I've been spending time with. Are you planning to tell her about me? Evie asked carefully. Yes? No hesitation, no doubt. I told you, this isn't a secret. He paused, searching for words. You're someone important, someone I want in my life, which means the people important to me will need to know about you. Before Evie could process that declaration, Ian's phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it, and his expression shifted from open to guarded in an instant. What's wrong? Evie asked. It's Christopher Vale. There's a situation with the Charity Foundation, apparently some concern about last night's event. Ian's jaw tightened. I need to make a call. He stepped away, leaving Evie alone with her pancakes and her thoughts. She could hear snatches of his conversation. Professional, controlled, the warm man from moments ago replaced by the intimidating businessman. When he returned, his walls were partially back in place. I have to go to the office, Ian said, and Evie heard the apology in his tone. There's a potential issue with one of the auction items, someone claiming the donation wasn't properly authorized. That's my event, Evie realized, professional concern overriding personal disappointment. I verified every donation personally. If there's a problem, it's not your fault, Ian interrupted, but I need to handle it before it becomes a public relations nightmare. He moved to her, tipping her chin up. Stay, have breakfast, use the shower, make yourself at home. I'll be back in a few hours and we can spend the rest of the day together. I should go home anyway, Evie said, even though part of her wanted to stay. I have work to catch up on, and we both need some breathing room to process whatever this is. Ian's expression tightened with frustration. I don't want breathing room. Maybe you need it anyway, Evie said gently. Last night was incredible. This morning was perfect, but we're still basically strangers who happen to have mind-blowing chemistry. Are we? Ian challenged, because I feel like I know you better after one night than I knew Amanda after a year together. The comparison to his ex made Evie flinch. Don't compare me to her. I'm not. Ian stopped, recognizing his misstep. You're right. I'm sorry. This situation is just bringing up old defenses, old fears about trusting the wrong person. I'm not going to betray you, Evie said quietly. I know that logically. Ian pressed his forehead to hers. But 5 years of isolation and distrust don't disappear overnight, no matter how extraordinary you are. They stood like that for A moment, both recognizing that the honeymoon phase of pure connection was giving way to real complications. "Go handle your crisis," Evie finally said. "I'll head home. We can talk later, figure out what comes next." Ian's kiss was intense, almost desperate, as if he was afraid this was the beginning of her pulling away for good. "This isn't over." "I know," Evie assured him, "but it doesn't have to be all or nothing right now either." After Ian left for his office, Evie took her time getting dressed, cleaning up the breakfast dishes, moving through his space with a strange combination of comfort and uncertainty. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lauren demanding updates and another from an unknown number that made her stomach drop. "Kevin, can we talk? I made a mistake. We can fix this." Evie deleted the message without responding, refusing to let her past intrude on whatever was building with Ian. But as she left Ian's building and headed home, she couldn't shake the feeling that last night had been the easy part. Now came the challenge of making this work in the real world, with all its complications, fears, and external pressures. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of stolen moments and growing connection. Ian made time in his impossibly busy schedule to see Evie almost daily. Coffee before work, lunch meetings that had nothing to do with business, late dinners that often ended with Evie staying over at his penthouse. They were learning each other in layers. Ian was surprisingly playful when he let his guard down, with a dry sense of humor that caught Evie off guard and made her laugh. He was also intensely attentive, remembering small details she mentioned and following up, sending her favorite pastries to her office, asking about the difficult client she'd mentioned, leaving notes in her jacket pocket when she wasn't looking. Evie, for her part, was discovering how to draw Ian out of his controlled exterior. She'd learned that he was most relaxed after making love, when his defenses were down and he'd talk about anything. His childhood, his fears, his dreams for the future. She'd learned that he valued honesty above all else, even when it was uncomfortable. But she'd also learned that his walls went up fast when he felt vulnerable, and that trust wasn't something he'd fully mastered despite wanting to. The cracks started small. It was a Thursday evening networking event for local business owners that Evie attended for professional development. She'd invited Ian, but he'd had a board meeting that ran late. Marcus Reynolds, a successful restaurant owner she'd worked with on several events, had been making conversation for the past 20 minutes. He was charming, attractive, clearly interested, and Evie was very clearly not interested back, though she remained professionally polite. "So dinner?" Marcus pressed, his hand coming to rest on her lower back in a gesture that was too familiar. "There's a new place downtown I'd love your opinion on. Professional collaboration, of course." "I appreciate the offer," Evie started diplomatically, "but I'm seeing someone and—" "Am I interrupting?" Ian's voice cut through the conversation like ice, and Evie turned to find him standing there in his suit, expression controlled but eyes blazing with something that looked like possessiveness. "Ian." Evie's relief was immediate and obvious. "I didn't think you were coming." "My meeting ended early." His gaze shifted to Marcus, assessing and dismissive in the same look. "And who's your friend?" The emphasis on friend was subtle but unmistakable, a claim, a warning. Marcus, to his credit, recognized a territorial predator when he saw one. "Marcus Reynolds. Just chatting with Evie about a potential collaboration." He removed his hand from her back and extended it for a handshake that Ian accepted with crushing politeness. "Ian Black," he introduced himself, and watched with satisfaction as Marcus's eyes widened with recognition. Evie's boyfriend. Evie's heart jumped at the label. They hadn't actually defined what they were yet, but she didn't contradict him. Marcus backpedaled quickly and disappeared into the crowd. Ian turned his full attention to Evie, his hand immediately finding her waist and pulling her against him in a gesture that was pure possession. "Boyfriend?" Evie asked, trying for teasing but hearing the underlying question. "Is that not what I am?" Ian's eyes searched hers, vulnerable despite his commanding presence. "You're not seeing anyone else. I'm not seeing anyone else. You spend most nights at my place. I can't stop thinking about you when we're apart, and I just nearly committed assault because another man touched you." His voice dropped lower. "So yes, boyfriend. Unless you prefer something else." "Boyfriend works," Evie agreed, her hand sliding up his chest. "Though you might want to work on the jealousy thing. Marcus was just being friendly. His hand was on your back." "Barely, and I was about to tell him no." "I didn't like it," Ian admitted, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. I didn't like another man touching you, looking at you like he wanted you. It triggered every possessive instinct I didn't know I had. Evie's irritation softened at his honesty. I'm not interested in anyone but you. I know that rationally. Ian's forehead pressed to hers. But Amanda used to do this. Flirt with other men to keep me off balance, to maintain leverage, and seeing you with him, even innocently, brought all that back. I'm not Amanda, Evie said firmly, and you need to stop letting her ghost ruin what we're building. You're right. Ian kissed her softly. I'm sorry. I'm still learning how to do this. Trust, relationship, being vulnerable. I'm going to mess it up sometimes. As long as you keep trying, Evie said. And Ian? Next time you're feeling possessive or jealous, talk to me instead of glaring at innocent bystanders. His smile was sheepish and devastatingly attractive. I was pretty intimidating, wasn't I? Terrifying, Evie confirmed. Also kind of hot, but don't let that go to your head. Chapter 3. The following week, Evie was working from her favorite coffee shop when Kevin Wallace walked in. She hadn't seen her ex-husband in person since signing the divorce papers 3 months ago. He looked the same, handsome in a conventional way, well-dressed, confident. But looking at him now, Evie felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no residual attraction. Just mild annoyance that he was interrupting her work. Evie, Kevin approached her table with that familiar smile. I've been trying to reach you. I know, Evie said coolly, not looking up from her laptop. I've been ignoring you. It's called a boundary. Kevin had the grace to wince. I deserve that, but can we talk? Please? Just 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, Evie gestured to the chair across from her. 5 minutes, then I'm going back to work and you're leaving me alone. Kevin sat, leaning forward earnestly. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Courtney meant nothing. It was just ego and midlife crisis stupidity. But you, us, our marriage, that meant everything. Past tense, Evie corrected. It's over, Kevin. Has been for a while, honestly. It doesn't have to be. Kevin reached across the table, trying to take her hand. Evie pulled back. We can go to counseling, rebuild what we had. I know I hurt you, but I still love you. No, you don't, Evie said with certainty that surprised even her. You love the idea of me, the woman who managed your life, made you look good, asked for nothing in return. But you never loved the real me, because you never bothered to actually know me. That's not true. When's my birthday, Kevin? He blinked, caught off guard. What? My birthday. We were married for 10 years. When is it? Kevin's silence was damning. August 19th, Evie supplied. You missed it 4 times because of work trips. Never rescheduled, never made it up to me. Just expected me to understand that your career came first. She closed her laptop, giving him her full attention. You want to know what I've learned since our divorce? I've learned what it feels like to be with someone who sees me, who asks about my dreams and actually listens, who makes me feel like I matter just by existing, not by what I can do for him. Understanding dawned on Kevin's face, followed by jealousy. You're seeing someone. I am, Evie confirmed, and before you ask, it's none of your business. You gave up the right to know about my life when you chose someone else. Who is he? Kevin's tone turned sharp, possessive in a way he'd never been during their marriage. Some rebound helping you feel better about yourself? Don't, Evie warned, her voice ice. You don't get to judge my choices after what you did. But Kevin was on a roll now, his ego bruised. What? Is he rich? Successful? Some older guy? Making you feel special with money and attention? He makes me feel special by treating me like I have value, Evie corrected. Something you never mastered in a decade of marriage. She started packing up her laptop, done with this conversation. Evie, wait. Kevin's voice shifted back to pleading. I know I screwed up, but we had 10 years together. That has to count for something. It counts as a lesson learned, Evie said, slinging her bag over her shoulder. I learned what I don't want, what I won't settle for, so thank you for that. She was halfway to the door when Kevin called after her, loud enough for the entire coffee shop to hear. You think this new guy is different? That he actually cares about you? Men like that, rich, successful men, they don't date women like you for keeps. You're a novelty, a project, and when he gets bored, you'll realize what you threw away. The words hit like physical blows, striking directly at Evie's deepest insecurities. Was she just a novelty to Ian? A challenge? The woman who saw through his walls? The first person in years to break through his defenses? What happened when the newness wore off? She forced herself to keep walking, refusing to give Kevin the satisfaction of a reaction, but his words followed her all the way home, planting seeds of doubt that she couldn't quite shake. That evening, Ian arrived at Evie's apartment with Thai takeout and a bottle of wine, ready for their standing Thursday night tradition. But one look at Evie's face, and his plans changed. "What happened?" he asked immediately, setting down the food and moving to her. "Talk to me." Evie meant to brush it off, to not let Kevin's poison infect what she had with Ian. But the tears came anyway, frustrated, angry tears that she couldn't control. Ian pulled her against him, holding her tightly while she cried against his shoulder, not asking questions, just being solid and present. "Kevin showed up at the coffee shop," Evie finally managed. "He wants to reconcile. When I told him I was seeing someone, he said," her voice cracked, "he said I'm just a novelty, that you'll get bored and I'll realize what I threw away." Ian's entire body tensed, and when Evie pulled back to look at him, his expression was thunderous. "He said what?" Ian's voice was dangerously quiet. "It doesn't matter. It absolutely matters." Ian's hands framed her face, forcing her to meet his intense gaze. "Evie, look at me. You are not a novelty. You're not a project or a phase or some temporary fascination." But what if he's right? The words tumbled out before Evie could stop them. What if this intensity burns out? What if you wake up one day and realize I'm just ordinary, that I don't fit into your world? Ian's jaw tightened, and for a moment Evie thought she'd pushed too far. But then he kissed her, hard, almost desperate, communicating without words what he struggled to say. "You want to know what I see when I look at you?" he asked when they finally broke apart, his voice rough with emotion. "I see the woman who challenged me at a charity gala when everyone else treats me with careful deference. I see someone brilliant and brave who rebuilt her entire life after betrayal. I see the person who makes me want to be better, to let someone in despite every instinct screaming at me to protect myself." "Ian, I'm not finished." His thumbs stroked her cheeks, wiping away tears. "I see the woman I can't stop thinking about, who makes me laugh, who calls me on my nonsense, who looks at me like I'm more than my bank account. You're not ordinary, Evie. You're extraordinary. And yes, I'm terrified that I'm going to mess this up, that my trust issues and emotional unavailability will drive you away. But boredom? Never." Evie's hands covered his, holding them against her face. "I'm scared too. Scared that I'm falling too fast, feeling too much. Scared that Kevin's right and I'm setting myself up for another heartbreak." "Then we'll be scared together," Ian said firmly. "But don't let your ex-husband's jealousy and inadequacy poison what we're building. He didn't see your value. That's his failure, not yours." "How are you so good at this?" Evie asked, half laughing through her tears. "You're supposed to be emotionally unavailable." "I was," Ian corrected. "Past tense. You're ruining my reputation." His expression softened. "But seriously, Evie, I need you to believe me when I say you matter, not as a novelty or a distraction, as someone I'm falling for faster than I know how to process." The admission hung between them, more vulnerable than anything Ian had shared before. "I'm falling for you too," Evie whispered, "and it terrifies me." "Good." Ian's smile was small but genuine. "We can be terrified together." He pulled her to the couch, settling her against his side, and they stayed like that for a long time, not watching TV, not eating the now cooling takeout, just being together in comfortable silence. Have you ever watched someone you care about navigate jealousy, the kind that comes from old wounds, not current circumstances? How did you help them learn to trust again? Share your experiences in the comments below, and if you're invested in seeing Evie and Ian work through their demons together, hit that subscribe button. Their journey is just getting more complicated. The following week, Evie accompanied Ian to a tech industry fundraiser, her first time appearing publicly with him as his date. She'd agonized over what to wear, finally settling on an elegant black cocktail dress that Lauren had insisted made her look sophisticated and stunning. Ian's reaction when he'd picked her up had been gratifying. pure hunger in his eyes, followed by the self-control to behave himself until after the event. The fundraiser was everything Evie expected: wealthy people making small talk, champagne flowing freely, the underlying competition of who could donate the most impressive sum. Ian kept her close, his hand on her lower back, introducing her to colleagues and competitors alike. "Everyone's staring," Evie murmured during a lull in conversation. "They're staring because Ian Black brought a date." Christopher Vale appeared at her elbow, looking amused. "Do you know how unprecedented this is? Ian doesn't do public relationships. Ever. I'm making him break all his rules," Evie said with a smile. "Good," Christopher replied warmly. "He needs someone to shake up his carefully controlled existence. Just don't—" He cut himself off as his gaze fixed on something, or someone, across the room. Evie followed his line of sight and saw a stunning blonde woman in a red dress making a beeline toward them. The woman moved with predatory confidence, her eyes locked on Ian with an intensity that made Evie's stomach clench. "Amanda Daniels," Christopher said quietly. "Ian's ex-fiancée." Ian had spotted her too. Evie felt him tense beside her, his hand tightening on her waist. "Ian, darling," Amanda purred as she reached them, her voice dripping with familiarity. "It's been too long." "Amanda," Ian's voice was ice. "What are you doing here?" "The same thing as everyone else, supporting technological innovation." Her gaze slid to Evie, assessing and dismissive. "And who's this?" "Evie Jordan," Ian said, his tone brooking no argument. "My girlfriend." "Girlfriend," Amanda repeated, as if the word was foreign. "How domestic." "Ian, I didn't know you did girlfriends these days." "There's a lot you don't know about me anymore," Ian replied coolly. "By choice." Amanda's smile never wavered, but something sharp flashed in her eyes. "I was hoping we could talk, privately. There are some business matters I'd like to discuss." "No." Ian's refusal was immediate and absolute. "We have nothing to discuss. Not business, not personal. Nothing." "Ian, I know you're still angry about what happened." "I'm not angry," Ian interrupted. "I'm indifferent. There's a difference. Now, if you'll excuse us, Evie and I were just leaving." He guided Evie away before Amanda could respond, but not before Evie caught the venomous look the other woman directed at her back. They made it to Ian's car before the silence became unbearable. "I'm sorry," Ian said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I should have warned you she might be there. I didn't think—" "It's fine," Evie interrupted, though her heart was still racing. "She's beautiful." "She's poison," Ian corrected harshly. "Beauty doesn't mean anything when the person underneath is rotten." "She clearly still has feelings for you." Ian turned to face her fully, his expression intense. "I don't care what she feels. What I feel for Amanda is contempt and caution. What I feel for you is—" He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "What?" Evie pressed. "What do you feel for me?" "Everything," Ian admitted, his voice rough. "Everything I swore I'd never feel again. And yes, seeing her triggered old defenses, old fears about trusting the wrong person. But then I look at you, and I know, you're nothing like her." "How do you know?" Evie hated the insecurity in her voice, but Amanda's appearance had shaken her. "Maybe I'm just better at hiding it?" Ian's expression turned fierce. He reached over, pulling Evie across the console and into his lap despite the awkward confines of the car. His hands framed her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Because you see me," he said with absolute certainty. Amanda looked at me and saw dollar signs, connections, status. You look at me and see the person underneath all that. You challenge me, frustrate me, make me laugh, make me want to be better. You're not using me for anything except the actual relationship I'm offering." "Ian." "I love you," he interrupted, the words tumbling out as if he couldn't hold them back anymore. "I know it's too soon. I know it's supposed to take longer than a few weeks, but I don't care. I love you, Evie Jordan. And seeing Amanda tonight just made me more certain of it because I felt nothing for her and everything for you." Evie's breath caught. "You love me?" "Terrifyingly so." His smile was crooked, vulnerable. "You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know, needed you to understand that this isn't a rebound or a novelty or anything except real." Evie's eyes filled with tears. Good tears this time. I love you too. And you're right, it's too soon and probably crazy, but I don't care either. Ian's kiss was desperate, celebratory, full of relief and promise. They stayed like that in the parking garage, tangled together in his expensive car, kissing like teenagers until they were both breathless. Take me home, Evie whispered against his lips. Your home, our home, wherever we can be alone. Ian didn't need to be asked twice. 2 days later, Evie was in a planning meeting with a potential new client, a major corporate account that could launch her eventual independent business into serious legitimacy. She'd been pitching her ideas for their annual gala when her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She ignored it, focusing on her presentation. But the same number called back immediately, then a third time. I'm so sorry, Evie apologized to her client. Let me just silence this. But when she glanced at the screen, she saw a text from Lauren. Answer your phone now. Emergency. Evie's stomach dropped. I apologize, but I need to take this. Can we continue in 5 minutes? She stepped into the hallway, calling the unknown number back with shaking hands. Miss Jordan? An unfamiliar male voice. This is Detective Harris with the police department. We need you to come down to the station to answer some questions about the Children's Healthcare Foundation fundraiser you coordinated last month. The world tilted. What? Why? There's been an allegation of financial impropriety regarding one of the auction items. We're interviewing everyone involved in the event planning and execution. Financial impropriety? Evie's mind raced. I don't understand. All the donations were verified, properly documented. Which is why we need your cooperation to clear this up, Detective Harris said. Can you come in this afternoon? Evie agreed numbly, ended the call, and immediately dialed Ian. He answered on the first ring. Evie, I'm in a meeting. The police want to question me about the charity event, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Something about financial impropriety with one of the auction items. Silence. Then. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't go to the station without me. Don't talk to anyone without a lawyer present. Ian, I didn't do anything wrong. I know that, he interrupted. But this smells like a setup and I'm not letting you walk into it alone. 20 minutes, Evie. Wait for me. He hung up, leaving Evie standing in the hallway, her carefully built new life suddenly feeling very fragile. Ian arrived with his personal attorney, a sharp woman named Rebecca Chen, who looked like she ate opposing counsel for breakfast. Together, they accompanied Evie to the police station, where Detective Harris laid out the allegation. Someone had claimed that Evie had accepted a bribe to feature a fraudulent donation in the auction, a medical equipment package that didn't actually exist. The anonymous tip had come with documentation, suggesting Evie had received $50,000 to place the fake item prominently. This is ridiculous, Evie said, her voice shaking with anger rather than fear. I verified every single donation personally. That equipment package was legitimate. I have emails, phone calls, documentation, which we'll be happy to provide, Rebecca interrupted smoothly. But first, Detective, who made this allegation? My client has a right to know who's accusing her. Detective Harris hesitated, then slid a folder across the table. Inside was a statement from Kevin Wallace, claiming he'd discovered his ex-wife had been involved in charity fraud during their marriage and felt obligated to report it now. Evie stared at the document, shock giving way to fury. He's lying. This is retaliation, because I rejected his attempts to reconcile. Can you prove that? The detective asked. Can he prove his allegations? Rebecca countered. Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like a vindictive ex-husband attempting to damage my client's professional reputation. The interrogation continued for another hour, with Rebecca masterfully deflecting and documenting every question. When they finally emerged from the station, Evie was exhausted and shaking. Ian immediately pulled her into his arms, not caring about the public setting. We're going to destroy him, he said quietly against her hair. Kevin Wallace just made the biggest mistake of his life. Ian, no. He tried to ruin you. Ian interrupted, his voice cold with fury. Used a false police. Report to damage your reputation, your business, your future. I will not let that stand. What are you going to do? Evie pulled back to look at him, seeing the ruthless businessman she'd only glimpsed before. Christopher has connections in the legal community. We'll file a countersuit for defamation, harassment, and filing a false report. Kevin's going to wish he'd accepted your rejection gracefully. This is exactly what he wanted, Evie realized, to prove that you're just using your money and power on my behalf, to make it look like I need you to fight my battles. Ian's expression softened slightly. What do you want to do? I want to clear my name myself, Evie said firmly. My documentation, my reputation, my defense. But she swallowed hard. I wouldn't object to your lawyer's help, or to you making sure Kevin understands there are consequences for this kind of vindictiveness. Ian's smile was sharp and dangerous. I can absolutely do that. That night, back at Ian's penthouse, the stress and adrenaline of the day finally caught up with them both. Ian paced the living room like a caged animal, making calls to his legal team, to Christopher, systematically building a defense and a counterattack. Evie watched him work, seeing both the ruthless businessman and the protective partner, and feeling overwhelmed by the intensity of it all. Ian, she finally interrupted. Stop. He looked up from his phone, concern immediately replacing calculation. What's wrong? I need you to stop being the intimidating CEO for 5 minutes and just be with me. Evie's voice cracked. Today was terrifying and you're trying to fix everything, but what I need right now is just you. Ian's expression transformed. He set down his phone, crossed to her, and pulled her into his arms without a word. They stood like that for a long moment, Evie absorbing his strength while Ian's racing mind finally quieted. I'm sorry, he said eventually. When you're threatened, my first instinct is to eliminate the threat. I forget that you might need comfort more than strategy. I need both, Evie admitted. But right now, comfort first. Ian scooped her up, carrying her to his bedroom, and laid her gently on the bed. But instead of the passionate urgency that usually characterized their intimate moments, he simply held her, his hands running soothingly over her back while she processed the day. Kevin really hates me, Evie said quietly. Kevin really hates that you moved on, Ian corrected. That you're happy without him, that you found someone who values what he was too stupid to appreciate. He's trying to destroy my career. He's trying. He won't succeed. Ian's voice was absolute certainty. Your documentation is impeccable. Rebecca already confirmed it. The police will realize this is a false report. Kevin will face consequences, and your reputation will be intact. And if it's not? Then we'll build you a new one, Ian said simply. Start your own. Company like you've been dreaming about. My investment offer stands, not as charity, but as a genuine business opportunity. Evie pulled back to look at him. You really believe in me? Completely, Ian confirmed, even on days when you don't believe in yourself. The kiss started gentle, comfort and reassurance, but it quickly deepened into something more urgent, both of them needing connection after a day of chaos. Ian made love to her slowly, deliberately, as if reminding both of them what they were fighting for. Afterward, tangled together in the darkness, Evie finally voiced the fear that had been building. What if Amanda is behind this? She asked quietly. Ian tensed. What makes you say that? The timing. She shows up at the fundraiser, realizes you're serious about me, and suddenly I'm under investigation for fraud connected to that same event. Evie traced patterns on his chest. It's exactly the kind of thing you said she'd do, use information against people. I'll look into it, Ian promised, his voice grim. If she's involved, she'll regret it. Ian, I don't want you to. She hurt me once, Ian interrupted. I won't let her hurt you. Not now, not ever. The fierce protectiveness in his voice should have alarmed Evie. Instead, it made her feel safe, valued, worth fighting for. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, Ian replied, and we're going to get through this, together. But as Evie drifted to sleep in his arms, she couldn't shake the feeling that the complications were just beginning. 1 week later, the police investigation had expanded beyond the initial allegation. Someone had provided additional evidence, fabricated emails that appeared to show Evie coordinating with vendors to inflate auction values in exchange for kickbacks. The documentation was sophisticated enough that even Rebecca Chen had to admit it looked professionally done. This is Amanda, Ian insisted during an emergency meeting in his office with Rebecca and Christopher. This has her fingerprints all over it. She has the tech expertise, the motivation, the vindictiveness. Can you prove it? Rebecca asked pragmatically. Ian's jaw tightened. Not yet, but I will. Evie sat quietly through the discussion, feeling helpless and increasingly like a burden. She'd already lost 2 potential clients who'd seen news of the investigation. Her reputation was being systematically destroyed, and despite Ian's resources, they seemed no closer to stopping it. I should just confess, she said suddenly, and every head swiveled toward her. Absolutely not, Ian's voice was sharp. You didn't do anything wrong. But if I take responsibility, claim it was a misunderstanding, maybe they'll drop the investigation and leave everyone else alone. Evie's voice was defeated. At this point, my career is already ruined. Why drag it out? Ian crossed to her, kneeling in front of her chair so they were eye level. Listen to me very carefully. You will not confess to something you didn't do. You will not let Kevin and Amanda, if she's involved, win by breaking you. You will fight, because you're stronger than this. I don't feel strong, Evie admitted, tears threatening. I feel like everything I've built is falling apart because I dared to move on, to be happy. Then lean on me, Ian said firmly. Let me be strong enough for both of us until you find yours again. That afternoon, Ian insisted Evie take a break from the legal stress. He'd cleared his schedule and taken her to an art gallery she'd mentioned wanting to visit months ago. They wandered through the exhibits in relative silence, Ian's hand firmly clasped with hers, both of them trying to pretend they weren't being slowly destroyed by external forces. This one, Evie stopped in front of a painting, an abstract piece, all storm colors and chaotic brushstrokes. This is what the inside of my head feels like right now. Ian studied the painting, then her. Mine too. They stood there together, staring at artistic chaos until Ian's phone buzzed with a call he couldn't ignore. It's my investigator, he said apologetically. I need to take this. He stepped away, and Evie continued through the gallery alone. She was studying a sculpture when someone spoke behind her. You're Evie Jordan. Evie turned to find Amanda Daniels standing there, looking perfectly composed in designer casual wear, a small smile playing at her lips. Amanda, Evie said coolly. What a coincidence. Hardly. Amanda moved closer, her voice dropping to conversational intimacy. I wanted a chance to talk to you privately, woman to woman. We have nothing to discuss, don't we? Amanda's smile sharpened. You're sleeping with my ex-fiancé, interfering in business that doesn't concern you, and generally making yourself a problem. Ian's personal life stopped being your business when you betrayed him, Evie said, proud that her voice stayed steady. Betrayed, Amanda repeated, as if the word amused her. Is that what he told you? That I'm the villain in our story? Are you about to claim otherwise? I'm about to tell you the truth that Ian's too proud to admit. Amanda leaned against the wall, completely at ease. Ian and I were perfectly matched, both ambitious, both willing to do whatever necessary to succeed, both understanding that relationships are transactional at their core. I fed information to competitors because that's what smart businesswomen do. Ian was furious, not because I betrayed him emotionally, but because I outplayed him professionally. That's a creative revision of events. It's the truth, Amanda insisted. And here's another truth. Ian doesn't do genuine love. He does possession, control, strategic partnerships. Whatever he's told you about caring for you, about this being different, it's the same pattern he followed with me. Intense focus, complete attention, making you feel like you're the center of his universe. Despite herself, Evie felt doubt creeping in. That was exactly how Ian had approached their relationship, intense, all-consuming, overwhelming. Until you're not useful anymore, Amanda continued, until the newness wears off or you become a liability. Then that famous cold distance returns, and you're left wondering what happened to the man who claimed to love you. Why are you telling me this? Evie asked, hating that her voice shook slightly. Because I don't like seeing women deceive themselves. Amanda's expression was almost pitying. You seem nice enough, if a bit naive. You don't deserve to be Ian's latest project, the challenge he's conquering before moving on to the next one. And the investigation? The allegations against me? Amanda's smile was pure innocence. I have no idea what you're talking about, though I did hear something about charity fraud. Unfortunate timing, isn't it? Just when you're dating one of the foundation's biggest donors, Almost makes one wonder if there's a connection. The implication was clear. Amanda was suggesting Ian might be involved in framing Evie, using her as some kind of pawn in a game Evie didn't understand. "You're lying," Evie said, but uncertainty had taken root. "Am I?" Amanda pushed off from the wall, preparing to leave. "Ask yourself this: how much do you really know about Ian Black, about the ruthless things he's done to build his empire, about the people he's destroyed when they became inconvenient?" She paused at Evie's shoulder. "You might want to consider that you're just the latest casualty in his very controlled, very calculated life." She walked away, leaving Evie standing alone, her mind spinning with doubts she couldn't quite dismiss. Ian found her 10 minutes later, still standing in the same spot, staring at nothing. "Evie? What's wrong?" He touched her arm, and she flinched, the gesture small but noticeable. "Did you see Amanda was here?" Evie asked, her voice carefully neutral. Ian's expression hardened. "No. Did she approach you?" "She wanted to have a woman-to-woman chat." Evie finally looked at him, really looked at him, trying to see past the handsome face and protective demeanor to the truth underneath. "She told me some interesting things about your relationship." "None of which were true," Ian said immediately. "Evie, whatever she said, how do I know that?" The question burst out, all of Evie's fears and doubts coalescing. "How do I know any of this is real?" "We met 6 weeks ago, Ian. 6 weeks, and my entire life has been turned upside down. I'm under investigation, my career's ruined, my ex-husband is out for revenge, and your ex-fiancé is suggesting you might be involved in all of it." Ian looked like she'd physically struck him. "You think I had something to do with the investigation?" "I don't know what to think," Evie's voice rose. "Amanda said this is your pattern. Intense focus, making someone feel special, then discarding them when they are no longer useful. Is that what's happening? Am I just another project?" "How can you ask me that?" Ian's voice was low, dangerous. "After everything we've shared, everything I've told you, you're going to believe her poison over what you know to be true." "What do I know to be true?" Evie challenged. "I know we have incredible chemistry. I know you say you love me, but I also know you're the most controlled, calculating person I've ever met. What if Amanda's right? What if I'm just a challenge you conquered, and now that I'm becoming complicated, you're ready to move on?" "That's not—" Ian stopped, visibly fighting for control. "I don't know how to prove to you that you're wrong, except to point out that if I wanted to walk away, I would have done it already. The investigation makes you complicated, potentially damaging to my reputation by association. If I were the man Amanda described, I'd have distanced myself the moment Kevin filed that police report." "Unless you're playing a longer game," Evie said, hating herself for voicing the thought but unable to stop. "Unless destroying me serves some purpose I don't understand." The hurt that flashed across Ian's face was visceral and immediate. "You really believe that? After everything?" "I don't know what I believe anymore." Evie's composure cracked completely. "My entire world is falling apart, Ian. The man I thought I knew and trusted for 10 years betrayed me. How do I know you're any different? How do I know this isn't just another mistake, another situation where I'm trusting the wrong person?" "Because I love you," Ian said, his voice raw. "Because every wall I've built over 5 years, you've broken through. Because you're the first person I've let see the real me since Amanda destroyed my ability to trust. Because I wake up thinking about you and fall asleep holding you and spend my days finding excuses to hear your voice." "Words," Evie whispered. "Just words." "Then what do you want?" Ian's control was fraying now, emotion breaking through. "What proof can I offer that you'll believe? Because I'll give it to you, Evie, whatever it takes." "I want to know you're real," Evie said, tears streaming down her face. "I want to know this isn't just intense chemistry and convenience. I want to know that when things get truly difficult, more difficult than they already are, you won't retreat behind those walls and shut me out." "I can't promise I won't mess up," Ian admitted. "I can't promise I won't retreat sometimes, because that's been my default for years. But I can promise I'll fight to come back. I can promise that losing you scares me more than any business failure or financial loss ever could." They stood there in the middle of the art gallery, Two people who loved each other but were being torn apart by external forces and internal fears. "I need space," Evie finally said. "I need time to think clearly, away from you and away from all of this chaos." "Evie, please." "I'm not breaking up with you," she interrupted, seeing panic flash across his face. I need to be alone, to figure out what I actually feel versus what I've been manipulated into feeling." Ian's expression was anguished, but he nodded. "How much time?" "I don't know. A few days? A week?" Evie wiped at her tears. "Just until the investigation is resolved and I can think without feeling like I'm drowning." "I'll fix this," Ian promised. "The investigation, the allegations, I'll fix all of it." "That's exactly the problem," Evie said softly. "You don't know if I want you to fix it, or if I need to fix it myself to prove I'm not just depending on your resources." She walked away before Ian could respond, leaving him standing alone in the gallery, looking more lost than she'd ever seen him. Chapter 4. Ian didn't respect her request for space. 3 hours after she'd left the gallery, he showed up at her apartment with evidence, a complete dossier his investigator had compiled, proving Amanda's involvement in the false allegations. The fabricated emails had been traced to an IP address registered to one of Amanda's shell companies. The anonymous tip had come from a burner phone purchased with a credit card that linked back to her. "It was her," Ian said, thrusting the folder at Evie. "All of it. She coordinated with Kevin, provided him with the fake documentation, coached him on what to say to police. She's been systematically destroying you to hurt me." Evie took the folder but didn't open it. "Why?" "Because she can't stand that I moved on, that I found someone who makes me genuinely happy when she only ever saw me as a resource to exploit." Ian ran his hands through his hair, disheveled in a way that suggested he hadn't slept. "Rebecca is taking this to the police tonight. By tomorrow, Amanda will be facing charges for filing false reports, conspiracy, possibly fraud. Kevin too. It's over, Evie. We won." "We won," Evie repeated hollowly. "My reputation is still destroyed. I've lost clients, opportunities. Amanda and Kevin will face legal consequences, but the damage is already done." "Then we'll rebuild," Ian insisted. "Start your company. I'll invest. We'll make it better than before. With your money, your connections, your resources." Evie set down the folder. "Ian, don't you see? This just proves Amanda's point. I can't solve my own problems without you swooping in to fix everything." "That's not what this is." "Isn't it?" Evie challenged. "I asked for space and you showed up 3 hours later with a complete investigation. You can't help yourself. You have to control everything, fix everything, make sure I need you." Ian's expression turned cold, defensive walls slamming back into place. "So I'm being punished for solving the problem? For protecting you?" "You're being called out for not respecting my boundaries," Evie corrected. "I said I needed space, and you decided your need to fix things was more important than my need for autonomy." "Because I love you." Ian's control finally shattered completely. "Because watching you doubt me, is killing me. Because Amanda's poison is working exactly as she intended, driving us apart, making you question everything real between us." "Maybe she's just highlighting problems that were already there," Evie said quietly. "You don't know how to let anyone in without trying to control them, and I don't know how to be in a relationship without losing myself." "So what are you saying?" Ian's voice was dangerous quiet. "That we're done. That 6 weeks of the most genuine connection I've ever had means nothing, because your ex and mine decided to team up and destroy us?" "I'm saying I don't know," Evie admitted, her voice breaking. "I don't know if we're strong enough to survive this, if I'm strong enough." Ian stared at her for a long moment, and Evie watched walls she'd spent weeks breaking down reconstruct themselves in real time. "Fine," he said finally, his voice returning to that cold, controlled tone from when they'd first met. "You want space? You've got it. Figure out what you want, Evie. But understand that I'm not going to beg. I've laid myself bare for you in ways I haven't done for anyone. If that's not enough, then maybe Amanda was right about one thing. Maybe I am incapable of giving you what you need." He turned to leave, and panic seized Evie's chest. "Ian, wait." But he was already gone, the door closing with quiet finality behind him. Evie sank onto her couch, clutching the folder of evidence, and finally allowed herself to completely fall apart. That night, unable to sleep, Evie finally opened Ian's folder. She read through every piece of evidence methodically, the IP traces, the phone records, the timeline of Amanda's manipulation. But tucked in the back was something Ian probably hadn't meant to include, a series of emails between him and Rebecca from weeks earlier, before the investigation had even started. The subject line read, "Preemptive protection for Evie Jordan." Evie's hands trembled as she read through the thread. Ian had hired an investigator to run background checks on both Kevin and Amanda the week after the charity gala, not because he suspected anything specific, but because he'd wanted to be prepared if either of them tried to interfere in his relationship with Evie. One email in particular made her breath catch. "Rebecca, I know this seems excessive, but I need you to understand. Evie is different. She's not someone I can afford to lose because I was unprepared. Amanda taught me that people you trust can destroy you. I won't let that happen to Evie. I won't let anyone hurt her the way I was hurt. Whatever it costs, whatever resources we need, I want to be ready to protect her." Rebecca's response was equally telling. "Ian, I've worked with you for 7 years. I've never seen you like this about anyone. But be careful that your need to protect doesn't become control. Real love means trusting someone to handle their own battles, even when every instinct tells you to fight for them. Make sure Evie knows she's your partner, not your project." Ian's reply, "I'm trying. God knows I'm trying. But every time I think about something happening to her, about her being hurt because of me or despite me, I can't breathe. How do you love someone without trying to shield them from everything that could possibly cause them pain?" Evie read the exchange 3 times, tears streaming down her face. This wasn't manipulation or control. This was a man so terrified of losing someone he loved that he'd gone overboard trying to protect her. And she'd thrown it back in his face, accused him of the very things he was desperately trying not to be. She grabbed her phone, dialing Ian's number with shaking hands. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then went to voicemail. "Ian, I'm sorry," she said, her voice thick with tears. "I read the emails with Rebecca. I understand now. You weren't trying to control me. You were trying to protect me, because that's the only way you know how to love after what Amanda did to you. And I hurt you by making you feel like your love wasn't enough, like you were just repeating old patterns when you were actually trying so hard to break them." She took a breath, composing herself enough to continue. "Amanda was wrong about you. Kevin was wrong about us, and I was wrong to let their poison make me doubt what we have. You're not perfect, and neither am I. But we're real. What we feel is real. And I want to fight for it, fight for us if you'll let me." She hung up and waited for him to call back. He didn't. By the next morning, Ian still hadn't responded. Evie's calls went to voicemail. Her texts showed as delivered but unread. Even Christopher Vale, when she finally broke down and called him, said Ian had cleared his schedule and wasn't taking meetings. "He's hurt, Evie," Christopher said gently. "Really hurt. Ian doesn't let people in easily, and when he does, he gives everything. Having that thrown back at him triggered every defense mechanism he's built." "I know," Evie whispered. "I know, and I need to fix it. Where is he?" "I can't tell you that. Client confidentiality." "Christopher, please." "However," he interrupted, "I can tell you that Ian's sister Taylor called me this morning, concerned, because Ian showed up at her house at 3 in the morning looking like his world had ended. She lives in Westchester, that big colonial on Maple Drive, the one with the blue door." "Thank you," Evie said fervently. "Don't thank me. Just fix this. Ian deserves to be happy, and despite my better judgment, I think you make him happy." Evie was in her car 10 minutes later, driving north toward Westchester with her heart in her throat and a dozen speeches prepared in her head. Taylor Black's house was exactly as Christopher described, a beautiful colonial in a neighborhood that screamed successful professional with family priorities. Evie sat in her car for 5 minutes, gathering courage before finally approaching the blue door. A woman answered, early 30s, warm brown eyes, dark hair and a messy bun, wearing scrubs. She looked exhausted but kind, and her expression shifted to recognition when she saw Evie. "You're Evie," she said. It wasn't a question. "I'm looking for Ian." "I know." Taylor stepped aside. "He's in the guest room. Hasn't come out since he arrived, won't talk to me or my husband, barely touched the breakfast I left outside his door." Her gaze was assessing but not unkind. Whatever happened between you two really destroyed him. I know, Evie said miserably. I'm trying to fix it. Then you'd better be sure before you go up there, Taylor warned. Because Ian doesn't bounce back from emotional damage. He walls off and rebuilds his defenses higher and stronger. If you're going to hurt him again, it's kinder to walk away now. I'm not going to hurt him, Evie said with certainty. I'm going to love him, if he'll still let me. Taylor studied her for another moment, then nodded toward the staircase. Second door on the right. And Evie? My brother has spent 5 years convincing himself he doesn't need anyone. You've apparently proved him wrong in 6 weeks. That's both powerful and terrifying for someone like Ian. Be patient with him. Evie climbed the stairs on shaking legs, approaching the guest room door like she was approaching her own judgment. She knocked softly. Taylor, I'm fine. Ian's voice came through the door, rough as if he hadn't slept. Please, just leave me alone. It's not Taylor, Evie said. It's me. Silence. Then movement. The door swung open to reveal Ian looking worse than she'd ever seen him, hair disheveled, clothes wrinkled, eyes red-rimmed and haunted. He stared at her like he couldn't quite believe she was real. What are you doing here? His voice was carefully neutral, but Evie could hear the hurt underneath. I read the emails, Evie said, the ones you sent to Rebecca about protecting me, about being so afraid of losing me that you went overboard trying to keep me safe. Ian's jaw tightened. Those were private. I know, and I'm not sorry I read them because they showed me the truth. Evie stepped closer, and Ian stepped back, maintaining distance. The rejection stung, but she pushed forward. You're not trying to control me, Ian. You're trying to love me the only way you know how, after Amanda taught you that love equals vulnerability, equals devastation. Evie, I'm not finished. Her voice was firm. I accused you of treating me like a project, of not respecting my boundaries, of being just like Amanda described. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared of how much I feel for you, how fast everything happened, how completely you've changed my life in 6 weeks. And when Amanda planted those doubts, I grabbed onto them because being suspicious felt safer than being vulnerable. Ian's expression was still guarded, but something flickered behind. His eyes, hope, maybe, or just the desire to believe her. I love you, Evie continued, her voice cracking. Not because you fix my problems or protect me from the world. I love you because you see me, really see me, in ways no one else ever has. I love you because you're brilliant and wounded and trying so hard to be different than you were trained to be. I love you because when you let your walls down, you're the warmest, funniest, most genuine person I've ever known. You said you needed space. Ian's voice was quiet, controlled. You said you didn't know if we were strong enough to survive. I was wrong, Evie said simply. Or more accurately, I was scared and letting that fear make my decisions. But I'm done being scared, Ian. I'm done letting Kevin's betrayal and Amanda's manipulation dictate how I approach this relationship. What changed? Ian asked, still not moving toward her. What's different now than yesterday? I read your words to Rebecca. I saw how terrified you are of losing me, how hard you're trying to balance protection with partnership, and I realized you're scared too. We're both scared. But being scared together is better than being safe and alone. Ian's control finally cracked. You really hurt me, Evie. Made me feel like everything I'd given you, everything I'd opened up about wasn't enough, like I was still the cold, calculating person everyone thinks I am. You're not, Evie insisted, closing the distance between them. Ian didn't back away this time. You're warm and passionate and capable of extraordinary love. You're just afraid to show it because last time you did, it was weaponized against you. I don't know how to do this without fear, Ian admitted, his voice raw. I don't know how to love you without being terrified that you'll realize I'm not worth the effort. Evie's heart broke and mended simultaneously. Then we'll be terrified together. We'll mess up and fight and hurt each other sometimes, but we'll also laugh and love and build something real, something worth fighting for. Ian stared at her, and Evie watched the internal battle play out across his face, fear warring with hope, past wounds fighting against future possibilities. I missed you, he finally said, the admission seeming to cost him. It's been less than 24 hours, and I missed you so much I couldn't breathe. I missed you too, Evie whispered. Please forgive me for doubting us, for doubting you. Ian pulled her into his arms finally, holding her so tightly it almost hurt. Evie felt wetness against her neck and realized with shock that Ian was crying. Silent, restrained tears that he was trying desperately to hide. I thought I'd lost you, he said against her hair. I thought Amanda won, that I'd finally let someone in and they'd destroy me just like she did. You haven't lost me, Evie promised, her own tears flowing freely now. I'm right here, and I'm staying. I'm fighting for us, Ian, for what we have and what we can build together. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other, both crying, both healing from wounds old and new. I love you, Ian said when he finally pulled back enough to look at her. So much it terrifies me. I love you too, Evie replied, terrifyingly so. His kiss was desperate and tender and full of promise, a claiming and an apology and a vow all at once. Take me home, Evie whispered against his lips, our home, and let's figure out how to do this together. Together, Ian agreed, the words sounding like a prayer. 2 weeks later, the police investigation concluded with a press conference that Rebecca Chen orchestrated with surgical precision. The district attorney announced that all charges against Evie Jordan had been dropped, acknowledging that she had been the victim of a coordinated campaign of harassment and false reporting. Amanda Daniels and Kevin Wallace were both facing multiple charges: conspiracy, filing false police reports, fraud, and in Amanda's case, corporate espionage. The evidence Ian's investigator had compiled was airtight, and both were looking at significant legal and financial consequences. Evie watched the press conference from Ian's office, his arm around her shoulders, feeling vindicated but also strangely empty. It's over, Ian said quietly. Your name is cleared. We can move forward. Can we? Evie asked. Kevin and Amanda are facing prison, but the damage to my reputation is already being repaired, Christopher interrupted, entering with his tablet. I've been monitoring social media and industry chatter. The narrative has completely shifted. You're now the victim of a vindictive campaign by a jealous ex and his accomplice. If anything, the publicity has raised your profile. I've fielded 7 calls this morning from companies wanting to hire you for events. Evie blinked. 7? Including 3 major corporations and 1 non-profit that specifically cited your integrity and professionalism as reasons for wanting to work with you. Christopher's smile was genuine. Turns out being publicly vindicated makes you quite marketable. Ian's arm tightened around her. So what do you want to do? Accept the offers or move forward with starting your own company? Both, Evie decided, feeling certainty settle into her bones. I'll take select clients to build capital and reputation, then launch my own firm next year. And Ian, she turned to face him fully, I want to do this myself. No investment from you. No using your connections to fast-track success. I need to prove to myself that I can build something independently. She held her breath, waiting for Ian to argue, to insist on helping, to let his protective instincts override her need for autonomy. Instead, he smiled, proud and a little sad, but accepting. Okay, but when you do need business advice or want someone to celebrate successes with, I'm here. As my boyfriend, not my investor, Evie clarified. As your partner, Ian corrected. In life, if not in business. That night, Ian took Evie to dinner at an exclusive restaurant, the kind of place that required reservations months in advance, but somehow had a table available when Ian Black called. I have something for you, he said over dessert, pulling a small box from his pocket. Evie's heart jumped. The box was the wrong shape for a ring, but still. It's not what you're thinking, Ian said quickly, reading her expression. Or maybe it is, partially. Just open it. Inside was a key card and a folded document. That's a key to my penthouse, Ian explained. The document is adding your name to the building's approved resident list. I want you to move in with me, officially. Evie stared at the key, emotions warring inside her. Ian, that's too fast? He supplied. Probably, but we've already established we do everything too fast. You're at my place most nights anyway. Your toothbrush is in my bathroom. Half your clothes are in my closet. This just makes it official. What about my apartment? Keep it, Ian said immediately. I'm not asking you to give up your independence or your safety net. I'm asking you to share my space, my life, my home. But on your terms. At your pace. Evie turned the key over in her hand, thinking. 6 weeks ago, this would have been insane. But 6 weeks ago, she hadn't known what it felt like to be truly loved. Okay, she said, and Ian's face lit up. But I'm keeping my apartment for now, and we need to make your place feel less like a showroom and more like a home. Done, Ian agreed immediately. Whatever you want to change it, make it ours. Even the sad bachelor furniture? Especially the sad bachelor furniture. His smile was warm, genuine. Taylor has been after me for years to add some life to that place. She's going to be thrilled you're taking on the project. The following weekend, Ian brought Evie to Taylor's house for a family dinner. His sister had been relentlessly persistent about meeting the woman who broke through Ian's walls, and Ian had finally relented. Evie was nervous in a way she hadn't been for anything related to Ian before. Taylor's opinion clearly mattered to him, and the thought of his family not accepting her made Evie's stomach churn. Stop worrying, Ian said as they parked outside the Colonial. Taylor's going to love you. She already loves you for making me human again. Human? Her words, not mine. Ian squeezed her hand. Apparently, I've been more emotionally available in the past month than I have in 5 years. She attributes it entirely to your influence. Taylor answered the door with a huge smile, immediately pulling Evie into a hug that was warm and genuine. Finally, Ian's been stalling for weeks about bringing you around. I have not been stalling, Ian protested. You absolutely have. Taylor ushered them inside, where a tall man with kind eyes and 2 children, a boy around 8 and a girl around 5, waited in the living room. Everyone, this is Evie. Evie, this is my husband Marcus, and these are my monsters, Jake and Sophie. The dinner was chaotic in the best way. Kids interrupting with stories, Marcus sharing embarrassing tales about Ian from family gatherings, Taylor grilling Evie about her work and her intentions toward her brother. Through it all, Ian sat beside Evie with his hand on her knee, more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. After dinner, while Marcus took the kids upstairs for bedtime routines, Taylor pulled Evie aside into the kitchen under the guise of helping with dishes. So, Taylor said without preamble, you're in love with my brother. Yes, Evie confirmed without hesitation. And he's in love with you, which is terrifying for everyone involved because Ian doesn't do love easily. Also yes. Taylor studied her for a moment, then smiled. Good, because I haven't seen my brother this happy since before our parents died, and he decided emotions were liabilities. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I'm not doing anything special, Evie protested. I'm just being myself. That's exactly what's special about it, Taylor said. Amanda tried to mold herself into what she thought Ian wanted. You're just authentically you, and apparently that's what he actually needed. She dried a plate, her expression turning serious. He's going to mess up sometimes, get scared, retreat behind his walls, struggle with vulnerability. I know. But he's also going to love you with an intensity that most people don't experience in a lifetime. Ian doesn't do anything halfway. When he commits completely. I'm learning that, Evie said softly. From the living room, Ian's laughter rang out at something Marcus had said, and both women smiled. That sound, Taylor said quietly. I haven't heard that sound in years. Thank you for giving my brother back to himself. A month after the investigation concluded, Evie's first major independent client event was scheduled, a corporate anniversary gala for a tech company. It was everything she'd been working toward, her vision, her execution, her reputation. Ian had offered to attend as her date, but Evie had gently refused. This is my success. I need to do it on my own, prove to myself that I can. Ian had understood, had kissed her forehead, and promised to be waiting with champagne when she got home. The event was a triumph. Everything flowed perfectly. The timing, the atmosphere, the client's delight, obvious throughout the evening. Evie moved through the crowd with confidence she'd earned through her own competence, not borrowed from anyone else's influence. As the evening wound down and guests began departing, Evie stepped outside for air and found Ian waiting by his car. What are you doing here? She asked, surprised but delighted. I know you said you needed to do this alone, Ian said, approaching her slowly. And you did, spectacularly from what I can see. But I couldn't stay, away for the ending. I wanted to be here when you realized just How extraordinary you are. Evie's eyes filled with tears. Ian, you've spent your entire adult life being told you're not enough. Ian interrupted gently. Kevin made you feel invisible, made you believe your value came from what you could provide for him. But tonight, you proved what I've known since the moment I met you. You're brilliant on your own, without anyone's help or validation. I couldn't have gotten here without you, Evie argued. Yes, you could have, Ian said firmly. Maybe it would have taken longer, maybe the path would have been different, but you would have gotten here because you're talented and hardworking and determined. I didn't create your success, Evie. I just had the privilege of watching you claim it. Evie closed the distance between them, kissing him with gratitude and love and overwhelming emotion. Take me home, she whispered, to our home. I want to celebrate with you. Back at the penthouse, which now featured photographs on the walls, colorful throw pillows on the couch, and evidence of actual life being lived, Ian opened champagne while Evie kicked off her heels. To your success, Ian toasted, the first of many. They clinked glasses, but neither drank. The air between them had shifted into something charged, full of unspoken promise. I'm proud of you, Ian said, setting down his glass and moving to her. So incredibly proud. Show me, Evie invited. This time their intimacy was different, not desperate or urgent, but deliberate and celebrating. Ian took his time, worshipping every inch of her skin with whispered words of admiration. He told her how brave she was, how strong, how remarkable. He showed her through touch and attention exactly how valued she was. For Evie, making love to Ian after her independent success felt like reclaiming herself. She was no longer Kevin's discarded wife or Ian's project. She was her own person, choosing to share herself with someone who celebrated her autonomy rather than trying to control it. I love you, she breathed as sensation built. I love us. I love us too, Ian replied, his voice strained with emotion and physical intensity. I love who we are together and who we are apart. When they finally fell apart, tangled together in sheets that smelled like them both, Evie felt complete in a way she never had before. Marry me, Ian said into the darkness. Evie's breath caught. What? Ian shifted to look at her, his expression serious despite his casual tone. Not now, not tomorrow, but someday, when we're both ready and certain. Marry me. That's not how proposals work, Evie said, laughing even as tears pricked her eyes. It's how ours works, Ian corrected. I'm telling you my intention. I want to marry you, Evie Jordan. I want to build a life together, not me rescuing you or you fixing me, but two whole people choosing each other every day. Yes, Evie said, the words simple and certain. Someday, when we're ready. Yes. Ian kissed her, sweet and thorough, and Evie felt the last of her fears dissolve. They had both been broken by past betrayals, both learned to protect themselves through isolation. But together, they were building something stronger, a partnership built on genuine love, mutual respect, and the courage to be vulnerable. 6 months later, Evie stood in the renovated office space that housed Jordan Events, her company, built through her own vision and hard work. The walls were covered with photographs from successful events, and her calendar was booked solid for the next year. Ian arrived at closing time as he often did, ready to walk home together to the penthouse they'd completely transformed into a real home. How was your day? He asked, kissing her hello. Exhausting and perfect, Evie replied, linking her arm through his. Yours? Better now. As they walked through the city together, Evie reflected on how much had changed. Kevin had served 6 months for filing false reports and was now someone she rarely thought about. Amanda had faced more serious consequences and was no longer part of their lives. Lauren had become both Evie's business partner and closest friend. And Ian had continued learning how to be vulnerable, to trust, to love without fear. They still fought sometimes, still triggered each other's old wounds occasionally. But they'd learned to talk through conflict instead of retreating, to choose each other even when it was difficult. What are you thinking about? Ian asked, noticing her expression. How far we've come, Evie said. How grateful I am that I decided to coordinate that charity gala. Ian smiled, pulling her closer. Best decision either of us ever made. In Evie's purse, the engagement ring Ian had presented last week caught the light, a symbol of their commitment to building a future together as equals and partners. Life wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for both of them, that was more than enough. They'd both been damaged by betrayal, both built walls to protect themselves from further pain. But in finding each other, they'd discovered that the greatest risk wasn't opening your heart. It was keeping it closed. Ian Black had spent 5 years avoiding women, convincing himself that isolation was safer than connection, that control was better than vulnerability. Until one night with a divorced black woman named Evie Jordan changed everything. She'd seen past his walls, challenged his assumptions, and shown him that love wasn't a weakness to be eliminated. It was a strength to be embraced. And in return, he'd shown her that she wasn't invisible, that she deserved to be valued, that her worth came from who she was rather than what she could provide. Together, they'd built something neither had thought possible, a relationship based on genuine trust, mutual respect, and the courage to be authentically themselves. The cold billionaire had learned to feel again, and the woman who'd felt invisible for years had discovered her own radiant light. Have you ever rebuilt your life after betrayal? Have you found love when you weren't looking for it? Share your stories in the comments below and let me know where you're watching from. If Evie and Ian's journey touched your heart, subscribe for more stories about love, resilience, and second chances. Tomorrow brings a new story, but this one stays with you. Thank you for being part of the Dear Love Diaries family.